Thank you very much for joining us here online today. Now, I would like to announce the commencement of Userbase Inc.'s financial results briefing for the first quarter 2021. Your questions can be addressed using a Q&A service called Sli.do. Its URL can be found in the Zoom chat, so please kindly access the service and post your questions. Now, allow me to introduce the members of the management joined here online. Co-Chief Executive Officer, Yusuke Inagaki. Hello to you. Co-Chief Executive Officer, Taira Sakuma. I am Sakuma. Thank you for joining us. Chief Financial Officer, Daisuke Chiba. Hello to you. Thank you. NewsPicks Inc. Chief Executive Officer, Daisuke Sakamoto. Thank you very much for joining us. All these members of the management are joined here online, and I am Ando of the Public Relations Department of Userbase. It's my pleasure to serve your MC. Now, Sakuma, Co-Chief Executive Officer, will explain our consolidated results.
Now, I would like to give a presentation on the first quarter results. So first of all, I'd like to give an overview of the business segments. So the Sli.do business consists of Sli.do and Sli.do expert research, which is provided by Mimir. Other B2B businesses comprises forecast sales, and initial. NewsPicks business has NewsPicks and Alpha Drive, and the other businesses are those that are not included in these three segments. So these are the highlights of the first quarter results. Overall, performance was very favorable during the quarter. I would like to elaborate further on the respective businesses later, but the Sli.do business saw a growth both in net sales and MRR, and we are seeing a strong startup of the expert research business. The other B2B businesses, forecast initial, are both growing strongly. And the NewsPicks business especially was supported by the strong performance of the advertising business, and both sales and EBITDA grew. So as a result, the consolidated results are shown here. Both sales and profit are in a good line with our plan. Net sales is 15.6 billion yen and EBITDA 1.8 billion, which is well in progress. And the progress of net sales is 25%, and EBITDA operating profit largely exceed 25%. So it might be assumed that, well, we might overshoot the full year results. However, as stated in the notes, especially in the Sli.do business, the cost tends to be concentrated on the second half of the fiscal year. And as I explained in the last briefing about this year's investments towards a consistent 30% growth in revenue, we will be investing in engineers and the organization as well as new businesses. And this will take a full force through the second quarter onwards. In terms of the sales and profits, currently we are in line with the plan. So this is our most important indicator, MRR. In the first quarter, as of the end of March, the total is on the right-hand side. It was 883 million, and the annual recurring revenue is 10.6 billion yen. And it's showing growth of 24% year on year. And the MRR by business is shown in the middle of the slide. In order to continue 30% revenue growth, we are aiming to build strong businesses to achieve consistent 30% growth. Apart from the Sli.do business, we have already achieved a year-on-year growth of over 3%. And last year, we withdrew from the quartz business. So assuming that this business did not exist, that will be the actual comparison of the existing businesses. In this chart, you can see the blue-green line graph. This is the consolidated net sales trajectory, excluding the quartz business. In the first quarter, the result was 3.965 billion yen. And year-on-year growth is 38%. In terms of profit, we also made a comparison excluding the quartz business, as shown in the blue line chart. And the first quarter result was 837 million yen, up from a negative 42 million.
From here on, I would like to touch upon our segments. First, regarding Sli.do. At the end of MRR, at the end of March, MRR is, as you see here, the growth rate has recovered a little bit. So it's going to increase to 15% year-on-year level. Compared to last year, the MRR increase was 13 million. And this time around, it's 22 million. So given the seasonality, which repeats every year, I think we performed well. We started to disclose the churn rate numbers from the previous financial results briefing. And you can see the trend that we've managed to stop the churn rate from further deteriorating. But 1.3 churn rate, of course, historically speaking, is still a high zone. Thus, we will strive to aim to bring down the rate to 1% or below. We will strive as a full force company-wide. R&D, investments, technical, and sales. And speaking of sales here, as you can see in gray zone, the gray zone is something I'd like to call your attention to, which is driven by expert research sales. A big chunk of the growth increase is now owed by expert research-driven revenues. So MRR growth rate of 15% was the rate that I mentioned earlier. But in terms of the expert research record high rate of 24% year-on-year is observed. And of course, we are investing so that we can capture business opportunities. EBITDA rate in terms of the margin has decreased by 5.5 percentage points due to investments. And there's a kind of a seasonality factor that I shall mention, first half, second half, a seasonality factor. Last year, the full year number, compared to that number, we are looking at worsening by about 5% or so. And you can see the trend of EBITDA margin by the orange graph line.
Next is the other B2B businesses. The MRR of forecast as of end March was 107 million yen, up 33% year-on-year. And sales from focus and initial, the sales growth is also about the same. And the net sales growth of the whole segment was 33%. EBITDA is quite low, just 12 million yen. The forecast business continues to grow, including forecast sales. We are continuing investment in these businesses. So the current break is almost break even, but we will continue investment. So the actual figure we are expecting to worsen or a decrease in order to achieve a future growth. And in our IR activities, we've been hearing feedback that it's hard to understand what forecast is about. So I'd like to share what it actually does with some real cases. So our client, Sony Marketing, is a group company of the Sony Group that engages in marketing activities, and they are utilizing forecasts. And the number of leads has more than doubled, which is a significant effect. And I wanted to explain this, so I might take some time. First of all, I'd like to talk about how they are using forecasts. And by using forecasts, for example, if a customer shows interest and wants to know more and results in an inquiry, forecast data can be quickly provide the overview of the company, what kind of company it is. So the work involved in researching what the company does and how it's structured is no longer needed. So the quick response is enabled, and you can engage in a communication with a thorough understanding of the background of the potential client. And the targeting can be facilitated using the power of technology. So that's what forecast does. And forecast analyzes what kinds of characteristics of what customers are fit for your service or product. And you can identify which leads to a specifically target. For example, with Salesforce and marketing automation tools, you can link this with forecasts. And sales planning divisions are not the sole people to define the leads, but it can be closely connected with the field sales and inside sales people. Therefore, so by using the target company flag, people within the company can work smoothly to engage in marketing activities. And on a related note, so what kind of customers you can deliver value to using the targeting function of forecast. You can provide marketing that is almost a one-to-one focused kind of activity towards multiple companies. So it might be easy to target one or two specific or leads that you really want to capture, but it makes it easier for creating more customized emails and for communication by using forecast data. So it provides a systemic approach to automate the writing of email communication. And apart from that, for example, you can show some indicators such as foreign capital companies and other characteristics of the companies. And there's what we call forecast score. And it provides an estimate of how likely are you to succeed in capturing a lead. So if there's sufficient resources at your company, you can target companies that have a score of 50. But if your resources are tight, you can narrow your forecast on leads that have a score of over 70. So those 4 functions helped our customer double their leads. So in the early stage of forecast, our main core customers were startups, but now it is expanding to major corporations, and they are utilizing forecasts in various scenarios. And the other day, forecasts and Jira CEO formed a partnership, and we made an announcement. And the targeted information provided by a forecast can be further supported by this partnership. Jira CEO is a kind of network service of CEOs. So first, you will narrow down your focus on companies using forecasts. And if they're users of Jira CEO, then you can further identify the key person you should approach. So this partnership enables us to provide a more targeted ADM. And we believe that this combination will further enhance the results provided by each service. And going forward, we would like to work on ways to further utilize the strengths of forecast.
Next, I'd like to touch upon our NewsPicks segment. Well, regarding NewsPicks, looking at end of March, it was 240. And in terms of expansion, the growth rate was plus 38% year-on-year. And compared to the term before, it was additional 11 million MRR. It was mostly contributed by corporate rather than individual users. And one thing that we need to convey to you is, as you see in the graph here, from June of last year, strong expansion phase had started. The backdrop to this, of course, is COVID-19, and we were able to be trusted by the users, and thus we were able to successfully grow MRR. On a quarterly basis, this growth was for 45 million, which is quite a large increase. Of course, it's been about a year since then. Thus, there's a natural kind of a reactionary drop. What I'm saying is basically last year, around this time of the year, we were able to volume increase our individual users. But, in terms of year-on-year numbers set, we are going to see some natural drop from there. However, we think that reactionary drop is only temporary, and we'll be able to go back to a strong trend. Now, I'd like to touch upon advertising revenue. In terms of the net sales in advertisement, in the fourth quarter last year, we saw record high level. The first quarter 2021 continued on that strong trend. So if you were to look at year-on-year, this dark blue bar graphs represent the year-on-year growth. And as you see here, it's very strong. Now, there's a seasonality factor here too, and usually the second quarter is a weak quarter. So we expect that to happen without an exception this year as well. However, figures have been higher, as we see here, compared to 2020. So we think that on year-on-year comparison base, strength will be maintained. And the reason is basically on the back of video advertisement. The contribution coming from video advertisement is quite clear. So now I like to turn to this chart. 1.94 billion is the overall number in terms of NewsPicks net sales as a whole. Of course, year-on-year comparison, last year it was 1.26 billion. And then in terms of net sales growth, it was 54% expansion. That's quite a large number. And so as I have been saying, in terms of net sales, of course, we grew, and EBITDA also have been pulled back by such a strong net sales. But part of what we have gained in the first quarter would be used as additional investments, directing towards further growth. So that's all for the first quarter 2021. I would like to just repeat what I said at the beginning of this session. The first quarter, all in all, was a very strong quarter. And from next year and going onward, we would like to have a steady 30% growth, as we have announced before. And for that, in the second quarter, we would like to make sure that we will place investments. At this
Now we
point
will
in
start
time,
the Q&A session. We will be using Sli.do to accept questions. The Secretariat has posted the URL, the link to the Sli.do channel. Please use it to send your questions. The questions will be closed at 6:50, 10 to 7 p.m. And the unanswered questions outstanding at that time will be answered in full. I will hand over to Sakuma to facilitate the Q&A session. So now I'd like to start the Q&A session. So on the right-hand side, so you can see the number of likes, and I will answer in the order of the number of likes. So the first question. So in the progress against the plan, you explained that the full year results will be in line with the original plan, but how was the first quarter net sales compared to your plan? If it overshot, maybe it might continue through the second quarter onwards, and you might overshoot as a full year result. What do you think? So it's hard to answer in a short way, but there are some differences across businesses, but overall, against the plan, we're in line with the plan, generally, in terms of investments. So there are some delays, but in the second quarter, we have specific investment items. So in that sense, the profit and loss are in line with our original plan.
now I would like to take upon the next question, which is your organization, structural preparation for you to have the steady 30% growth from next term and thus after. How much progress have you made? So I and Inagaki will answer this question. First of all, regarding my area of expertise, for example, with regard to speed of growth, there are 2 points I think are key to our 30% growth rate. One is expert business expansion. Of course, the expert business is quite popular amongst those who like to have relevant deep dive research. So there's much room for expansion there. We need a further development. We need further human resources. But in terms of the progress rate, it's kind of difficult to give it a numerical reference, but I think we've done well enough in the first quarter. And the other is with regard to revenue related area. Up until last year, end of last year, we had this quotes business. And elsewhere, each pillar of our businesses vis-a-vis the segments have tried to succeed. And we had to cope with the minimum number of sales team numbers, but there is growth that we observe in each segment. So we think that education or the bottom up there is another key. Of course, when it comes to such tasks, we are collaborating with our advisor, Fukuda-san, who is now Japan Cloud Consulting head. He has worked in consulting area for quite a long time. So we leverage his knowledge and we examine through the first quarter as to how we can enhance our productivity. Of course, it will be rolled out to focus initial from Sli.do. And we think that this is something that we can be a pillar of our strength. Again, it will be difficult to give it a numerical reference as to what our progress rate is, but we've done well in the first quarter. Now, Inagaki-san. Well, yes, I am Inagaki. Thank you. Again, I feel the same way. But in terms of how much progress we've made, maybe halfway, I would say. In terms of hiring engineers, we have been able to gather more than a half of the targeted number of new engineers to be acquired on agreement basis. And then IT service, the HR, IT area. Of course, we are collaborating with each vendor. Through the first quarter, we've been engaged in discussions with them. And now we have a good blueprint, so to speak, of a collaboration. But in terms of our human resource expansion, the number of engineers has grown rapidly. So we need to make sure that the organization copes with the larger body of human resources that we have. And also, we need to continue to look at the efficiency factor for the productivity, the right resources to the right area of work, and not having too much or too many human resources in terms of headcounts. So that's kind of optimization effort that we can do in the second half.
Okay, next question. So the stock price has been low even before the recent drop of the Nikkei. And what do you think is the reason and background? Okay, I'll answer this question. So since the last financial briefing, so the stock price has softened quite a bit. And currently, I am thinking of two factors. First, consistent 30% sales growth would justify market cap that we are aiming for, but we haven't been fully showing our strengths to achieve that. And also, we are making major investments, and that has kept profit prospects low. So it is not clear what that will result in from the next year onwards. Regarding the first factor, we have to keep performing in order to prove ourselves. And our existing businesses and new businesses, we will report on our performance, and we will address the issue of Sli.do's churn. Regarding the second factor, when we provide the guidelines for next year, we will present a profit plan based on our certain portfolio.
Now allow me to go to the next question. The next question has to do with our investment towards expert business. How much impact do you expect on your business results, and how long would it take to see the actual impact? I will reply to this question. Regarding the cost impact, if you could please refer back to the slide that I have used to explain financial results. And 5% will be injected for the expert business creation. And in terms of amount of sales that we expect to generate out of there, it's actually a little premature for us to talk about quantitative result. But in terms of the time to impact, as we have tried to explain using a slide, in terms of the net sales growth, there is certainly an impact. And it's a growing impact we see, but it's kind of difficult to see how long it might take to see that impact.
Okay, I'll go on to the next question. So you said you're aiming for an early listing on the prime market, but I'm seeing a widening gap from the benchmark of 100 billion yen in market cap. Aren't you thinking of first switching to the first section of TSE? Well, I will hand over to Chiba, CFO, to answer this question. Okay, this is Chiba. I'd like to answer your question. So as you mentioned, the market cap is below 100 billion. And given this situation, we won't be able to fulfill the criteria for applying for the prime market listing. But at the timing of application, it will be enough if we achieve 100 billion yen at that time. So please assume that, well, this situation is not fixed. And regarding the first section of TSE, it has another set of criteria. And both of them we have not yet fulfilled. So we are watching the situation before making a decision. But currently, the application to the prime market, we would make it. So we are still, the management is still aiming and working towards listing on the prime market.
And now the next question. The next question has to do with any contingency or what if scenario where you fall short of your full year target. What would be the reasons if such were to happen? And what is the probability of that happening? I will answer. Well, last year we formulated a SaaS company structure, and we are expanding on efforts on that front. And in terms of net sales and cost, we have much more visibility. So we've improved on the management of such resources. So this is a strength that we have gained in the last year or so. So we have a very agile, rapid decision-making process in place regarding investment. Case in point is a hiring of new engineers under the leadership of Inagaki. And given such a foundation, any cases of falling short of our full year target, I would say such risks happening would be much, much lower than last year. But if you were to really ask me, what would be that, what if risk factor, then I would say hiring, as the question indicates. But and the reason is because with hiring, if we deviate a little bit, that has about big enough impact on the results. But there are ways to go around it. If we see that coming, then we can increase our investment to make sure that the hiring is on track.
Next question. So you said that Newspeaks is doing well in terms of video advertisement. Can you elaborate on that? So are the sponsors doing well, or are you doing well with production for advertisers? And okay, it seems like the questions are not in order of the number of likes, but we'd like to keep on answering. So I will hand over to Sakamoto, the CEO of NewsPicks. Thank you for your question. So the strong performance of video ads. So as you mentioned, well, the program sponsors and production of video for advertisers are both doing well, and we expect further growth of both of them. The background is that NewsPicks video ads have been raising their recognition, and that is one big factor. And in addition, the team has been strengthened a lot from last year. And they are very highly motivated for a team that is delivering very good results. And this is also related to the next question, which is about advertisement. So I'd like to answer it together. So the question is whether the unit price of ads can be raised. So we don't have an immediate plan to raise the price during the year, but in the high season, like March and December, we are looking to raise the price. This is in response to seasonality. So at a normal price, we have a certain unit price, but in line with what demand, we might raise or return the unit price. And we are preparing for that.
Earlier, I mentioned that we will take the questions in the order of how many likes have been posted, but we will just take one by one from here on. Now, the next question is Sli.do churn rate of 1.3% on annual basis is 15%. Given that there's enterprise, mid-size customers, that churn rate level is high. What are the reasons? And how do you improve? Well, certainly one of the factors is COVID-19, and some of the segments have been largely infected by degraded, hurt by COVID-19. So that indirectly affects us. The other factor is how we have reorganized Sli.do in terms of the cost setting. The fees actually have been set at a lower level, comparatively speaking, for high volume users versus low volume users. So that's part of the reason why churn is high. But in terms of net MRR, again, it's 22 million. It's quite healthy level. So it's kind of a balancing game between churn rate and net MRR.
Okay, next question. Okay, please could you explain about your desire to get Sli.do back to a 30% year-on-year growth rate? How will you do this, and when do you think the growth rate will accelerate? Okay, I will answer this question. So bringing Sli.do's growth to 30%, or to do that, the biggest factor is the startup of the expert research service. And currently at a very small scale, as I showed you in the graph, it is contributing significantly to sales growth. So it actually will added enough to achieve 24% year-on-year growth. So we are seeing certain results. And as we expand this service, we believe we can aim for 30% growth.
And the next question, your financial results briefing is held on a day when other companies also make such announcements, and that such concentration causes a loss of an opportunity for investors to listen in. Will you be able to coordinate your schedule better. Well, thank you very much for the comment. I am Chiba, CFO. We would like to see what it is that we can do. Regarding the second quarter, we're targeting August 5th. Today, it was 43 days elapsed after the close of the quarter. We will try to shorten this duration or time to announcement so that our financial results will be available early on and thus be able to avoid the concentrated days. But again, the second quarter is scheduled and aimed to be performed on August 5th. Please be on standby for that.
Okay, next question. So the MRR growth of Sli.do is accelerating a little quarter on quarter. What do you think are the factors? Okay, as I mentioned, so this is partly due to the new price structure. And thanks to the support of Fukuda-san, the sales team of Sli.do is really gaining power. And we're increasing leads in terms of marketing, and we are increasingly successful in generating more customers from those leads. And we are capturing many new accounts that is driving MRR growth. So the success rate has been improved at each step of the marketing and sales. And that is what supports our hiring of new personnel.
The next question is with regard to how we post expert business sales and COGS. We deduct the payment to expert. In other words, our net sales is actually netted already. In other words, post our payment to expert. And regarding the margin, it's still invisible. Of course, with any business, at the start of the business, the margin is low, and then there's acceleration process of the margin that's after. We are still new with this expert business, so it's too early for us to mention a particular number as to the margin. But Sli.do business as a whole is enjoying 35% margin level, which is quite high, and we would like to make sure that the expert business will be a part of a contributor, not a downward reason for the Sli.do business as a whole.
Okay, next question. So in terms of the net sales of the expert research services, is it like a ticket system instead of recurring? So is it like an add-on to the Sli.do service? So what is the sales scheme? So essentially they're both. So they're recurring and both, but the majority is the ticket sales. So as written here, so for example, we issue 100 tickets in advance, and it can be used for expert interviews and flash opinions, etc. So we recognize sales when those tickets are actually used.
The next question. The equity market doesn't seem to account for 30% continuous growth. How are you going to communicate with the market? I will answer, and also Chiba will supplement. As I mentioned earlier, we feel responsible for the fact that our stock prices are stagnating. Of course, to improve that, we should be loudly communicating to the market that we are aiming for 30% growth rate to be our steady growth rate. Just make sure that communication penetrates through the market. Now, I would like to touch upon more in detail on this issue. Of course, portion-wise, Sli.do is a large portion. As in terms of Sli.do, the growth rate implication, the fact that Sli.do has not reached anywhere near the 30% growth rate, we take that as our task to be seriously improved. And with regard to Newspeaks, we would refine. We often get questions from investors as to which market we will tackle to get further net sales. So, some of the communication is not penetrating. So we would like to make sure that all of our plans are fully explained to the market, down to the concrete, detailed factors are quite important. So we will make sure that we communicate fully to the market.
Okay, next question. So don't you disclose the net sales of the expert research service? And what about the frequency of use and unit price? Are there any other KPIs? I will answer this question. So this business is still in a very early stage and it's very small. So we don't disclose the KPIs yet. But through this year and the next year, we will see the right timing to consider disclosure. And the KPIs that we prioritize. So in my view, I think we can really leverage our approach to the SaaS business. And there's the progress towards a marketplace structured business. And continuous use is essential in this kind of business. For example, subscription, comparing with subscription, the upsell and downsell features are kind of automatically built in this business model. And customer success is extremely important in delivering a value to our existing customers and encouraging further use and increasing people using the service within our client companies. So delivering value through customer service for our customers to frequently use our service is a very important indicator for us.
And the next question is, with regard to Focus growth rate, seems like compared to last year, the growth rate of Focus seems to be slowing down. What are the reasons? Is it the lack of visibility of market cap? Well, we don't see any caps. That's true. Indeed, this DX, there are a variety of them actually, and reorganizing a customer-oriented product or service construction, that's quite key to the market. That market is large, and we don't see the limit to it or the cap to it. So utilizing data technology, expanding on our knowledge of our customers, really know our customers. I think there are some thoughts that I have surrounding those issues. And when I look at the inquiries and feedback from the attendants of our seminars, the cap of the market is not anywhere in the near horizon. So it continues to grow. And some of the factors that we are looking at for the slowdown is, for one, it's churn rate. Focus business had been most heavily hit by COVID-19. Of course, it has to do with the nature of the business. And we are about 4 years since the launch of this product. We're relatively new with Focus. The benefit of the service is not fully understood in some cases. Some people think that Focus will generate the list and that's it. Such is not the case at all. But there's a big value that we can provide by Focus. It could work as an infrastructure beneficial to our clients, and we will continue to develop that.
Okay, the end time is nearing, so we will stop accepting questions. Please refrain from sending further questions. So the unanswered questions at this point will be answered in full. We will continue the session. Okay, next question. What's the number of Sli.do IDs and paying members for NewsPicks? Chiba will give the answer. So sorry, from this year, basically, we have started communicating through MRR. So we have stopped disclosing this information. But the paying members for the NewsPicks, you can see in the appendix, there is a chart that shows the business model. So it is page 35 on the lower right. So it has the total of individual and corporate accounts, and the total number is 181,000.
And I will move on to the next question. In the second quarter, you said you will invest for future growth, one of which will be engineer hiring, but there might be some areas where you cannot invest fully. But with regard to upfront investment, we actually have started the hiring process in the first quarter, and we will continue this effort in the second quarter. So it's kind of hard to imagine that we cannot use up all the investments. And in terms of second quarter, there is going to be some reactionary drop, given a very high level last year. So we would like to come up with ways to solve that.
Okay, so next question, I believe, was how were you able to stop the worsening of the churn rate of Sli.do? We have been building a structure and securing personnel in order to provide enough support, and the results for stopping the churn rate from worsening is gradual, and that is the main background of this situation.
And the next question has to do with video advertising. Is it a macro effect or Sakamoto-san's skill? Well, I wouldn't say it's my skill. NewsPicks has accumulated on the know-how of producing videos for advertising purposes. We have been able to build a very strong team on the forefront. So those are the reasons, and we will continue on the growth.
Okay, going to the next question. Please, can you explain about Sli.do Edge US? Why are you doing this? Historically, Sli.do is focused on core Asia markets. Is this a change of strategy? Okay, I'd like to answer this question. So first, Sli.do Edge is a kind of experimental product, and currently we are not investing very heavily on it. The Asia market, we intend to further keep growing in. And this year, for example, we are focused on the Chinese market this year. And we are also developing original functions aimed for Chinese users. So that overall direction has not changed. And in addition, to deliver further value, we want to leverage the power of the technology and content of Sli.do in order to develop Edge. So the US market accounts for 60% of the global market. And we believe that we have to approach this market in some way in the future. And this is like an experiment towards that end.
And the next question. My understanding is that you didn't invest largely in the first quarter, but yet you were able to achieve plus 38% year on year. So your target of plus 30% doesn't seem to require investments. I will answer this. Was the first MRR plus 15%, and then with expert research, it was short of 30%. So those are some areas where we need to really jack up our results. Last year, again, the MRR grew quite strongly last year. I think it's important for us to make sure that we formulate a trend out of that strength instead of making it just a one-off event. And we need engineers for that.
Okay, next question. So when are you planning to raise the annual fee for NewsPicks? Sakamoto will answer this question. So currently, in terms of the price, we are discussing within the NewsPicks team, but we haven't decided anything yet. So once we have made a decision, we'd like to share it with you.
And the next question is with regard to any ideas that we might be generating with regard to new businesses. I will answer this. Of course, I'm thinking a lot of things. For us to have the steady growth of 30%, we cannot just rest on the existing business. We need to come up with new businesses, and altogether, we shall strive such a strong growth. Data technology and expert, these are the three key elements that we utilize to come up with the key elements beneficial to our customers. Because we have these three, we are able to offer services to the customers, which customers really appreciate and utilize to the fullest. Of course, we will continue to keep that in mind, and we are always thinking of new businesses. And whenever we're ready, we certainly will be sharing that information with you.
Next question. So, okay, we'd like to speed up a little. So I don't see a clear path towards accelerating individual paying members of NewsPicks. So will it accelerate automatically once you raise more recognition? What kind of marketing efforts or content development would be needed? Okay, handing over to Sakamoto. So this is related to the questions at the bottom about monetizing on NewsPicks, your expertise and holding your own community. So the new value towards individual members, we think it's essential to develop new functionalities. And with the current level of marketing, we can accept certain growth, but we believe that we have to deliver new value. And we are currently preparing towards a release in the second half of the year. And we would like to report on this at the next quarterly briefing or so. And in terms of marketing, the marketing side, last year, we launched some TV commercials, and we found that it has a certain impact. So going forward, we will still consider that as an option.
And the next question, which just have been changed. Back in FY19, at the time of financial results briefing, you mentioned NewsPicks profit margin and 22 for EBITDA 20%. But in the shareholders meeting, you mentioned EBITDA 20%, which is your true target. Chiba will answer. Well, back in FY19 financial results briefing, we did mention NewsPicks margin, EBITDA based, to be 20% as a target for 2022 fiscal year. We have not changed that target, but we did also announced during the shareholders meeting. Of course, in light of the fact that quotes business, we've withdrawn from that business, and there's been some changes to the balance of our businesses. So we may actually adjust our EBITDA target 20% to be each segment's direct performance level. We will be announcing a new guidance upcoming, and at that time, if there are any changes to what we have explained in the past, then we will fully deliver the reasons why.
Okay, next question. So at the last financial briefing, you said that you have full plans for people to monetize on their expertise and build their own communities on Newsfix. What's the current situation? Sakamoto will answer the question. So as I answered earlier, so we are engaging in development towards the second half.
The next question: at the time of shareholders meeting, you talked about the TAM for Focus to be 20 billion. That seems small, but is that going to be the cap vis-a-vis the ceiling for Focus net sales? Well, there are two things regarding the ADM market. Currently it's relatively a small market, but the growth rate is much faster than MA or SFA, and we think that this growth rate continues to be strengthened, and thus will eventually reach much bigger market. And also customer targeting is another way of making sure that we can capture a larger net sales. Of course, a Focus sales is one of which.
Okay, so next question. So what is the progress of your investment plan of 1.6 billion that you stated at the beginning of the year? So as Inagaki will mention, so we are making good progress, although we can't share the exact figures. But we have specific plans in the second quarter onwards, and we intend to keep in line with what we're intending.
The next question is with regard to the current activities of Mr. Umeda and how he contributes to the company. He's one of the founders, and it's unthinkable that he had to withdraw from the management, because of his failure in the U.S. market. Well, Umeda attends our BOD meetings. Of course, he's been in a top management for 13 years, and he is, as you know, a founder of this business. So he's been leveraging his knowledge and experience in the areas of corporate governance. His contribution is in a different area than what he used to be seen. However, he continues to contribute to user base in terms of making the company much more sound based. So I do understand the comment intention, but we would like to make sure that we together, of course, including Umeda, will strive to make sure that the company is sound.
Okay, next. So it's hard to see the actual trend of Sli.do since it's a 12-month average, but how is the monthly progress? I'll answer this question. So on a monthly basis, of course, I'm watching the progress, but there are some differences due to seasonality. So the definition of churn before the averaging is we look at the percentage of cancellations against the monthly results. For example, in April, so at the typical start of the fiscal year, so there tends to be a higher churn. And even within normal circumstances. And the 12, so actually it's higher than the 12-month average, but on an average basis, I think it's easier to grasp the overall trend. So essentially, well, there's still some ups and downs, and we don't see a very clear-cut trajectory of improvement, but we'd like to improve this towards the end of the year. That would be my answer.
And the next question is with regard to Newspeak's. In terms of net sales, it's almost double or in the double zone year on year. What segment contributes most, publishing, New School, or consulting? Well, Sakamoto will answer. Well, yes, all three segments actually contribute to the growth, but New School is a new contribution, which wasn't there last year.
Okay, next question. So can I assume that the up quarter, the sales will continue adding up each quarter? Yes, that's correct. So we are pursuing regular orders from our existing users, and that would bring us closer to a subscription model. So there's the baseline net sales, and rather than that decreasing or increasing. So by increasing our customers and the frequency of use, so the sales will accumulate as a business model.
And the next question has to do with our competitors for each segment of our business. What do you see as your weaknesses and how do you improve them? Well, to speak across all the segments might take a bit too much, but I will talk about Sli.do and Newspeaks first of all. For Sli.do, Hackset, Capital IQ, known global players who are competitors. In terms of the weakness, real-time based stock price offering is probably the weak point, especially to capture the buy side data. That's something that Focus doesn't currently do. Perhaps it's an area we need to tackle for Focus to grow in large volume. This real-time market data is quite key. That will require investment when we are ready to tackle that. For Newspeaks, Sakamoto will answer. Well, regarding Newspeaks, its the competitor will be Nikkei newspaper. That's the biggest competitor. We use them as benchmark. And in terms of the weaknesses, there are two things that I can highlight. One is the volume of content, and the other is web engagement. Nikkei, of course, has on the print side, 1,000 reporters. On the web version, of course, they don't have the equal number of reporters, but they by putting together a system where a user can actually create their content and post it and monetize it, creation of such a service on our system, I think would open up the doors for new revenue to come. And then the app ratio is high, so we want to emphasize and strengthen our web version. And on web basis, JobPicks has been a good model case for us to learn how to utilize such a system in place, and we can continue on such enhancements.
Okay, next question. So has there been any positive change in your core assets, corporate data, original content, and experts? Okay, so in terms of corporate data and original content, so there isn't a very quick change, but Mimir, providing expert research, well, it's really taking off in Sli.do, but this is further being linked to Newspeaks to provide a service called Newspeaks Expert. And we are seeing an increasing number of uses. And if you see Newspeaks, you can find that there's something like an expert Q&A. And actually in the same way as Sli.do's Flash Opinion, you can an expert will answer questions and earn money through it. So, this is originally very close to the Newspeak's business model. So we want to keep increasing the number of experts that will utilize and monetize their expertise through Newspeaks, and I think that is a positive change.
And the next questions, there are two questions, both regarding Newspeaks. Sakamoto will answer. The first question is your collaboration with NTT Docomo. Would the contribution be larger than the current subscription-based sales that you generate? And then the second is with regard to Alpha Drive. Now, in terms of our performance through the collaboration with NTT Docomo, it will take time for us to see the volume of net sales generated from paid subscription. But we are very energetically studying what would be the best system in place, the structure in place to generate as much net sales as possible. When the time is ready, we will disclose that. And then regarding Alpha Drive, consulting business and incubation suite as a new business, which can be utilized at the time of a launch of business. Those are the two things we're doing, and then they are growing nicely. And we are approaching the companies which use Alpha Drive. We are approaching them for cross-sell of Newspeaks. Such cross-selling efforts on a sales front is working very well. So Alpha Drive and Newspeaks collaborating together, the numbers are growing. Well, thank you very much for addressing many questions. We do appreciate your participation in this, and we really appreciate the fact that you have stayed beyond the scheduled time. But now I will announce that we will be closing this financial results briefing for the first quarter 2021. If you have any further questions, they can be addressed to our email. And the email address is ir@userbase.com. This Zoom venue will be closed in a few minutes, but we would like to once again appreciate your participation. Thank you.